Hi and welcome to Hot as Hell with Chrissy. I am so excited to bring you the next episode of the podcast. In today's episode, I'm talking about divorce and breakup with someone who knows exactly how you can get through a divorce or a breakup and live your hottest life afterwards. She helps women to realise that divorce and breakups are not the end of their lives. They are an opportunity. She's going to tell you how you can live your hottest life after a divorce or a breakup. I'm speaking to Amanda Barr. She is a divorce and breakup mentor. And even if you aren't going through a divorce or breakup, you're happily single or you're happily partnered up, happily married, this is going to be worth a listen, because we don't just talk about life after divorce. We talk about how to make sure you're making the most of your life, even if you are in a happy relationship. I'm so pleased that Amanda came in to talk to me. Enjoy this episode. I'll see you on the other side. Hello, welcome to Hot as Hell with Chrissy. I am so excited for today because I've got another brilliant conversation to have with you, or for you, should I say, with my next guest. Um, we met in networking, and Amanda, who I'm going to introduce herself in a second, was talking about her area of expertise, and I immediately, the ding dings happened in my brain that was like, we need to talk. We need to talk on, I've just coined someone else's podcast name there. We need to talk on my podcast because this is something that is really, really important. Amanda Barr from Amanda Barr Mentoring. Hello.
Hi, Bethy. Thanks for
How are
having me.
you?
I'm so good, thank you. I'm so good.
Good. I'm very pleased. Amanda, tell everyone who you are and what you do so they understand why we're having this chat.
Sure. So I'm Amanda Barr and I'm a coach and mentor. I support people going through the breakup and divorce process because it is such a lonely and isolating process. And I just feel like, having been through it myself, I've experienced that side of things, but I have a toolkit that I could draw on to help me through, which not everybody has. Um, and I still felt isolated and lonely. So it's become my purpose to ensure that nobody else feels like that going through it. So when we met networking, and you were talking about your mum boss and you're hotter than hell, I was like, oh my days, my bells were dinging as well. So it was great that we connected and can do this to educate people on what is out there, and how we can help people move through that process so much quicker and so much more successfully and so much more as themselves, I guess, is
Yeah.
the key aspect of it.
Yeah, I think so. And that's kind of the direction that we're taking this podcast. Although, because it's me, we don't script things and we could go off on several tangents. But we want this podcast to be a resource for women who have perhaps been through a breakup, going through it, and really focusing on their identity and processing, I guess, their feelings and their direction in doing this, which is exactly why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, and we are so similar in the work that we do around that identity piece, and the confidence, the boundary setting, the self identity that completely falls away. There's no sort of constraints to that, which can be quite scary for people when they first experience a breakup or divorce, especially if a longer term relationship where a future had been in sight and plans have been put in place, and for that to just be sort of taken away can be quite significant. And sometimes that's a choice that they've made, but sometimes that's a choice that they haven't. And sometimes that coincides with other massive life experiences, like parents getting older or kids flying the nest, or all of those things that bring with them identity crisis anyway,
Yeah.
but with an additional blow to the support network that was always by your side no longer being there for you.
Yeah.
So having to redesign who you are and being able to know that you can succeed and get through all of that by yourself.
Yeah, amazing. So you mentioned you'd been through this yourself. Um, who were you before your divorce, and who did you have to become because of it?
That I honestly, that is such a good question, and it's actually some of the work that I do with some of my clients to really understand who they seen themselves as and who they would like themselves to become. Who I was before my divorce was a successful career person, within the health and social care sector, working with people with disabilities. Was the main breadwinner and earner in the household. But I was also so lots of decision making, lots of direction, lots of strategy, lots of that in work. But when I came home, I was a people pleaser. I was accommodating. I would have lost myself in holding everything together. I would have dampened who I was. I put everybody else first, and that broke me, pretty much. And when we mutually made a decision to separate, but when I had decided that this was the right thing for me personally to move out and pursue my own life, I had to become resilient and very self-led, and deeply aware of my own needs, which had been completely disregarded previously. So it was around that, not hardening, but being grounded, regrounding, and understanding where my new boundaries were, because I wasn't overstepping my own boundary, but I also wasn't allowing other people to step over my boundary into my space. And I definitely do not self-abandon anymore. I am very clear on who I am, what I want, and how I'm going to get it. That's not to say that I will take anyone down in my way, but I will navigate that in a very different way to what I have navigated prior to my breakup and divorce, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what this made me think as you were saying that. So I'm unpicking my own thoughts as I say this, so
Mm,
bear with. But
sure.
we both work in the business of identity from
Yeah.
slightly different angles,
Yeah.
obviously. And but both of us, as you said before, it's so much about kind of rediscovering who we are, but also we both have this belief that you can decide who you want to be, right?
Absolutely. That is the most exciting bit of the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's such an
Barriers
opportunity, isn't it?
away.
And I
Yeah,
believe the same about menopause. It's an opportunity.
for sure.
And I think it's really I want to phrase it well, but I think when you're in a marriage, so I'm married, okay,
Yeah.
I identify as a wife, I identify as a mum, and I'm in a marriage, and we're very happily married. We haven't always It hasn't always been easy, but we're
Yeah.
happily married. But actually, if I think about all of the things that are part of my identity that are part of my identity because of my marriage, because of
Yeah.
this house, because of the
Yeah.
three of us, four, if you include the dog, living under the same roof, and all of the things that would change
Yeah.
if that's mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mind blowing. Um, so yeah, that just opens a whole can of worms, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really, just, and
Wait,
I can now appreciate how that must feel.
for sure. And I think that that's why I moved from not just solely coaching, but mentoring as well, because coaching to me, and I don't know if you identify with this, Chrissy, but coaching to me is very much, there's an action to be taken and I can teach you how to take that action. But the mentoring side of me is that I walk that path with you.
Yeah.
So whatever comes up for you as we go through that path, I can help you navigate what that looks like. And when you're going through a breakup or divorce, there are so many aspects of every single aspect of your life is affected. there's pressure from outside, there's people will start to know more about your internal systems than what you've ever given anybody any access to in the past. You know, you've got the legal profession, you've got finances, you've got potentially change of house, you've got 2 houses potentially for your children to navigate. You know, the sense of shame and guilt and anger and frustration and all of these things that you maybe haven't felt since you were a small child, because your life has just been ticking along, or, you know, particularly if this has been a bit of a surprise for you. But when there's that extent of change all at once, where do you start? And that's kind of the thing is, you know, people will start by retreating sometimes. Sometimes people come out fighting and getting vicious and sort of destructive kind of proactive approaches. And I'm very, very, very much about keeping things on an even keel as much as possible, because we don't want a central nervous system overloaded. We want you to be able to make really rational, proactive decisions that will not negatively affect your future or your children's future because you've been angry, or because you've been misguided, or because you don't have enough education. So that's why I love talking and connecting with people like yourself, because yes, we are both in the similar areas from a different perspective, but they complement everything along the way. And some, you know, a lot of my work, I have a Rolodex of people so that, you know, when someone is feeling overwhelmed, they don't have to start from scratch about who they could talk to about this or who they could talk to about that. And a lot of my connections, my referrals come from hairdressers, beauticians, PTs, fitness and nutritionists, because the first thing that people do is try to reinvent themselves physically. And that I totally understand. Because that's something that you have control over. But sometimes that can go too far the wrong way if the psychology and the sort of emotional side of that isn't balanced alongside the physical effort. So it's great when we can collaborate with things like this and really get the message clear to people.
Yeah, exactly. What's the biggest lie you see women telling themselves when a relationship ends?
Oh goodness. I think the biggest is that they could have done something differently. That it's that self-punishment bit where they will assume blame even though someone isn't attaching blame to them. Whether that be indirectly or directly. Sometimes blame is attached, but in other cases it's not. And I think that the thing that goes alongside that is also the whole I'm never going to cope, I'm not going to be able to manage, I failed, all of those kind of things, when actually you've been the one that's been holding everything together up until this point, until a decision has been made that that's not what you're going to do any longer. And again, depending on if you've been the one holding it together and have been told that this is not going to continue, that comes as a bit of a surprise or a blow sometimes. But if you are the one that have decided that you can't carry it anymore, and we've talked about this previously, when you are going through menopause, this angers me beyond belief that people will blame the menopause on divorce, and it's being the cause of a divorce, which is absolute nonsense. What menopause does do is lowers your tolerance levels for particular behaviors and attitudes, and therefore, you know, that flexibility in how much you're going to take of that reduces. So I can see where that comes from, but it's certainly not an accurate description. So when a label like that is then starting to be reinforced by someone else that you have self-imposed on yourself as a failure, or as, you know, not being good enough, or that, you know, you won't cope, it's so far from the truth, so far from the truth, it's unreal. So that's probably the biggest sort of lie, I guess.
Yeah. I tell people, whoever that will listen, is it's not just your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that go down in perimenopause, it's your oxytocin as well. So you have less shits to give, quite frankly. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And that gives you a different level of power. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking about within a relationship. I'm talking about with yourself.
Yeah,
And
your own
I'm sure
power.
I'm sure you see that time and time again. But that internal um connection to who you are meant to be just reaches the surface.
Yeah.
And it gives you the opportunity, like you say, to coincide with that reinvent and recalibrate where you're at and reinvent who you want to become. And that's without any prescription. You
Yeah.
can rewrite that in whatever way you like, and that
Yeah.
is beautiful.
Yeah. It's great.
Beautiful.
So when we talk about rewriting, then, like like you said before, one of the lies that women tell themselves is that they should have done something differently, or they did something wrong. So many, and I think if I think about people I know who have decided to end a relationship rather than it be a mutual decision or the
Yeah.
relationship ended on their behalf. So I think this happens to everyone, is so many women feel like they've failed, but how do we rewrite that narrative?
So that's to do with self-worth. And I think that's where the feel bit comes in. That's why that's the lie that they tell themselves, because they don't
Mm,
feel worthy. So that's my job, is to highlight where your worth is, and we start building those foundations to
yeah,
allow you to understand who you actually are and what you've actually been able to do within those circumstances, let alone anything else. And then how we can build that up again to then rebuild you into the person that you wish to be. And that's not necessarily about, changing everything and scratching, everything that you've known. It's about tapping into the things that you've forgotten about yourself as well. Like, what did you do when you were a teenager that really filled your cup, that made you light up, that made your eyes twinkle? Like, was it when you first passed your driving test and you got a faster car and you were like a bit of an adrenaline junkie? Is that the thing that lights you up now? Or does that fill you with fear because you're older and wiser about going a bit too fast and whatever else? But what is it that could light you up? Is it painting? Is it art? Is it travel? What is it? I had a lady that I was working with who had self-imposed these restrictions on, oh, I can't drive long distances. And I was like, oh, is there something physically that means that you can't, sciatica or something like that you can't sit for
mm,
long periods of time, or something like that? And she's like, oh no, it's just no, I just could never do that. And I said, well, where's the evidence for that? Like, where's that belief coming from? And she was just like, I suppose now when I think about it, when I was younger, like in my early 20s, I did a drive from the south of Ireland right up to the north of Ireland, and then across to Scotland, and then down to Cornwall. And I was like, go you, that was pretty long distance. With a couple of stops, pretty long distance. And she was like, yeah, actually, it's my husband that I do long distances. So it's those kind of things that, recognizing who you are builds your self-worth, and those kind of taking micro controls around, a daily practice where you're holding yourself to account. And a lot of my work is around talking to people about accountability and what they contributed to the breakdown of a relationship, because everybody does. It doesn't just break down because of one person. There will be signs along the way. There might be some big infidelity or something like that is definitely not your responsibility, but what led to that happening was
mm,
communication breaking down. Had this gone stagnant for a while that you've just been ignoring and putting your blinkers on? Those are the kind of things that we talk about being accountable for, because what we don't want to do is repeat those patterns in the next relationship. Um,
Mm.
so there's
Mm.
a lot of accountability, behavioral change, identity, and deciding who you want to be. Do you want to be that person that does those kind of things again or not? If that's what floats your boat, that's great. We'll work on that. But it's not going to build your self-worth because you will feel like you're failing over and over and over again. So when we look at that accountability and look at that self-worth building, those micro controls of taking responsibility for yourself and you're putting your needs first, such as setting intention in the mornings, gratitude in the evenings, looking after your body, fueling it in the way that you're supposed to. It's a lot of those the basics, doing the basics right so that the foundations are solid for you to build on
Yeah.
whatever you have. So for example, before my separation, my GP was querying whether I had fibromyalgia, because my body shut down and I literally couldn't get out of bed. And it was the physical symptoms of stress. Undoubtedly, I have no question in my mind. I have never had a symptom since. And for the last 6 years since I left, um, I have not had a day off sick, whereas I was constantly ill.
Mm.
Cold, flu, joint aches, even through my menopausal process. I had a couple of joint aches, but as soon as my HRT kicked in, they had gone.
Yeah.
It was more the brain fog and things like that affected me. But as for physical health, I was eating better, I was sleeping better, I was fueling my body in a way that was nourishing me as a whole person.
Mm.
And those are the things when you start doing those things for yourself, instead of having the blinkers on and putting everyone else first, everybody's getting a better version of you. And the best version of you is going to be the best for everyone.
Yeah.
So if you look after yourself first and take on those micro controls per day where you very much are in control of your life, then that gives you the confidence loves evidence. So the more confidence that you're building within yourself, the more evidence that you're gathering, so that when somebody comes to question that, you can just shrug it off because you're just like, yeah, whatever, because I've
Yeah.
proven to myself that that is not me anymore.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of things, I guess, are kind of the priorities.
Yeah. And that's what you've just described there. My next question was going to be, what does starting over actually look like in real life, not the Instagram version? But I think you've started to describe that. It's putting into practices those um routines and habits and rituals. And I like to use lots of different words for things like that because people resonate with so many different ones, don't they? And I
Yeah,
think what you
yeah,
just said there, when you start putting yourself first, everyone gets the best of you, the best version
yeah,
of you. That
exactly.
really resonates with what I do. And I work with women who are happily coupled and women who aren't.
Yeah,
And it's so important in whether you are going through a breakup or not to find, I always say, slices of time where you can fill yourself up. And we've kind of talked about, starting over can look however you want it to. But
absolutely.
so many women, it resonated when you said, "Oh, what used to light you up when you were a teenager? Was it driving in a fast car?" That made me really laugh because I got a new car recently, and it's such a joy to drive. I don't break the law, anyone, don't worry, but it is such a joy to drive, and it made me realise that my old car, bless her, was making me like, I was like, oh, I don't want to get in that car and drive down the road. Whereas now I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, drive, yeah, I'll get in,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Should we go?
But yeah, should we go? Who wants me to drive? I'll drive. But it's so funny how we just forget the things that fill us up because we adopt all of these other identities and responsibilities and routines and lifestyles because we are coupled.
Yes. And
Uh,
often imposed by somebody else, not chosen
yeah,
by you in the first place.
yeah. And that's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's a bit like the old like the Christmas conversation, isn't it? Well, these are the traditions in my family. Well,
Yeah,
these are the traditions in my family. So, what
yeah,
tradition do you, as a new family unit, adopt? But I think whatever stage of life you're at in terms of being in a relationship, menopause or whatever, it's really important to just remind yourself. And if you can't remember, have fun finding out what the
yeah.
things are that you enjoy doing.
Absolutely. And that's the thing for me. Like my tagline is chaos to curiosity, because a lot of people talk about gaining clarity, and you do need to gain clarity on that road to getting curious. But I think the clarity comes for me about who you are, what you want, how you're getting there, who you want to come with you, all of those kind of things. But then it's becoming curious about, but what else, like what does that look like? Does it have to be the prescriptive way that I'm currently thinking of it, or can it be done in a completely different way? And that's what
Mm,
led to me going out on my own, because I wanted to be able to do work that I could reach as many people as possible and do it from wherever I wanted to be. Because my kids aren't going to be small kids for long, and I had no interest in a new relationship or any of those kind of things up until more very, very recently. And that was about how can I continue to progress my life, how I want it to be in preparation. Like everything is preparation. We've done that for years in a marriage, that prepared for a future that we envisaged together. So you had to compromise. Now you don't have to compromise. You can just decide on what it is that your future looks like. But when you
mm.
look at the boundaries, your non-negotiables, and what you can be flexible on, then you can welcome in something new with those boundaries in place and not get yourself lost again, and that you can
Mm.
work together, because the person that you will welcome in at that point will come into your world at the right
Yeah,
time, because you know who you are and they like what they see.
yeah.
And that's what I've currently got. So it's important to do that work. And I hate that kind of turn of phrase of do the work and get the outcomes. But there isn't really a better way of putting it.
There isn't, is there?
Which sucks. I'm gonna have to really think
Yeah.
about that.
It's I'm gonna go off on a tangent. Get ready.
Go for it.
Um Recently, I think about 2 weeks ago, I kind of realized I was getting a bit boring. And I don't mean, I recognize that online I am a bit mad and I'm quite colourful and dance around in my underwear and stuff like that. But just, I wasn't saying yes to a lot of things. And a lot of
Yeah,
that comes down to protecting my sleep. I'm perimenopausal. My
yeah,
biggest symptom is lack of sleep. But I was just not, I was just not saying yes to many things. And so the last few weeks, I've really focused on saying yes to more things. So last night, I taught 9 other women how to make sourdough, because sourdough is one of my new passions. And I've really
love it.
been doing a lot of my needle work, which is one of the things that really calms me down because I am
Yep,
quite hyperactive. And, I said yes to going to a day of the Reading Festival. I've set of which I know no one who is singing on that
love it,
day.
love
Um,
it.
but just, saying yes, I went to an indie disco with my best friend and her sister and stayed up really late, which I'm not very good at. And all of these things. And it, apart from being ill for the last week, it does do that thing of attracting in the things that you want.
Yep,
Because it's not just about what fills your cup, but it's then the energy that you, and we're being woo, the energy that you project out. And I think whether you're in a relationship or you're not, whether you're looking or you're not, that just makes life so much more colourful to go through. And my husband
absolutely.
said, since you've been saying yes to more things, you're just happier. Not that you
Yep,
were a miserable cow before, but
yeah,
you're just happier, you're
yeah,
lighter.
yeah. And you've got so much to look forward to. And I think I was going to say earlier as well, it's like we forget how to have fun. The kids all have fun, but when you're having fun, there's no space for the nitty gritty and the mundane to take over and start spiraling in your head. When you're saying yes and you're having fun and you're embracing curiosity, oh my gosh, there's so many opportunities open up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but you don't have to say yes to everything. But once you've started saying yes to something, the things that you really want to do start coming your direction, as you said. So, it's like it's proven time and time again. So it's just about sort of when you're clearer about who you are, then you know what you want to say yes to and what you don't want to say yes to, and what will fall out of your life. And I guess that's a lot of the starting over stuff. You shed a lot of people, a lot of places, a lot of things, a lot of material stuff, a lot of beliefs. There's a lot of shedding. So there's space for all of this newness. There's a space for familiarity in some of the things that you do, but there's also a space for brand new things that you would never have envisaged yourself doing. No. And just because you haven't envisaged yourself doing them doesn't mean that you shouldn't try.
No.
And I'll do a nod to a friend of mine, Jackie Brennan. She put a post on LinkedIn the other day, which I commented on. She'd been refusing to go astrophotographing with her other half for years. And she went the other night and it fogged over and they didn't get good pictures and all of that. But she absolutely didn't regret it because it was a connection with her husband that she'd been avoiding for a long time, and she could see why it lit him up and all of those kind of things. And sometimes we say no because we've told ourselves it's a pattern that we just don't like doing, but actually if you challenge your own beliefs on what you like doing and what you don't like doing, you can be pleasantly surprised a lot of the time.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just, now is such a good opportunity, perimenopause or after a breakup. So
absolutely embrace it.
Embrace it. Okay, one of the questions that I put to you was talking about how women can truly move on rather than get through it. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about where that question came from. So I'm thinking of a particular client, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I know that, and the two questions, it's this question and the next question, were really inspired by her. And she went through the breakup of a marriage, and it really battered her confidence. And when she first came to work with me last September, she said, she was coming to work on her fueling and her movement, but she said to me in our first conversation, me and my husband broke up, and I've known her for a long time. Me and my husband broke up, and it's really destroyed my confidence. And I feel like all I'm doing is trying to get through each day to make it to bedtime so that I can just go to bed and have a few hours of peace.
Yeah.
So my two questions are, how do you help women to truly move on? And how do you help them to rebuild their confidence when they just don't recognize themselves anymore? Because I think I wrote them as separate questions, but I think they're so interlinked.
Yeah, they are. You don't really get one without the other, really.
No.
So basically how the getting through it bit, there's a certain level of acceptance that that's part of the process. There are stages where you will just feel like you're getting through it and just existing is enough. And I guess my work is around recognizing and helping them recognize that that is enough for today. That is amazing. Did you get out of bed? Fantastic. Did you wash your face? Even better. Did you brush your teeth? No. Perfect. Lying at the table, we're all good. Do you know? And that's okay. But when those days start stacking up, then we have a problem. So it's more about recognizing what it was that was going on for you at that point of where you felt like you couldn't physically do much more. So were you fueling correctly? Had you slept? has there been something happened externally? And understanding how that then impacts the psychology, the physiology, and the approach to the day. But it's also around the stuff that we've mentioned before. It's those micro controls and those setting intentions. So tomorrow I intend to, because when you wake up with a plan and you have a focus, then it's easier to motivate yourself to keep going. So but if you aren't successful with that, you don't bash yourself about it. We reflect on that and we understand the reasons why we haven't been able to do that. That might not be that same day, it might not be the next day, it might be a week later, but we will do it. But a lot of that is also around journaling, so that we can look for patterns in thoughts as well as behaviors, and how the thought is impacting the behavior, and then how we can change the thought to then develop the behavior into a more productive way. So like I say, there's a lot of accountability, behavioral change for self and for external, so your interactions with other people. So that's how we start rebuilding the confidence, because once you've started doing that on the small thing, as I said, you're starting to build up that evidence bank where you can say, well, when you wake up and go, I can't do that today, you can look back at the journal and go, well, 2 days ago I felt like that, and look what I achieved. So there's a bit of a system that I use around the intention setting, and then a gratitude at the end of the day, which connects, but there's a reflection piece around that, so that we can identify some of those behaviors and patterns, and how we shape our intentions, so that it is meaningful and not just I set my intentions today and never think about it for the rest of today. It's about not just about what that intention is, but how that's going to be woven into your existence of the day. And that's something to anchor yourself into. But I also use hypnosis and timeline therapy to help people through those processes as well. So where they're maybe feeling stuck with something that they maybe haven't got closure on because they feel like it relies on someone else, I can guarantee you can get closure by yourself. You do not need anyone else to give you closure, because ultimately that's giving somebody an element of power that they have no right to have. But sometimes when you're doing timeline work, we can work on having a conversation with self from a dissociated position, where you can have that internal conversation with someone externally, which then can give you closure and help you move along your timeline a lot quicker. So there's lots of tools that I can use to help that happen. Ultimately, it comes back to that routines and structure and knowledge, and building the knowledge bank that we have, so that we can structure the support that we're providing, and that mentorship along that journey together, that will really be beneficial to the individual. And everything's individually tailored that way, because everybody thinks differently, everybody believes different things about themselves. So it's that individually tailored sort of aspect to that. And reminding people that whilst they feel left, broken, abandoned, all of those negative feelings, you're going to have to feel some of those things, because that is part of the loss cycle. That devastation, the anger and the frustration and the bargaining of, well, if I do this, would you stay or would you go? Or, can we just do dinner together and talk this through? It's all part of the process, that's all a realistic expectation. But the thing is also to remember is that swings back and forth. It's not linear. It doesn't go, right, I feel this, and then I'm going to move to this one, and then I'm going to do it doesn't happen like that. No. It can be the tiniest wee thing can set you back, a song or a lyric, or a smell of something, or the kids getting married and you have to be in the same room for the first time in a decade. It can be small, it can be big, but you've got the tools to deal with it by that stage. So it's building that resource so that you can pull out of your toolkit anything that you need. And we talk about a lot of that building the confidence. We talk about putting on your armor, your metaphorical armor. Like I say, my work does not include people becoming hard and non-feeling. it actually enhances people being emotive and expressive, because they're confident enough to tell you how they're feeling about something. They're
Yeah.
confident enough to hold their boundary. They're confident enough to put themselves in a situation that is unfamiliar, but they know that they've got the capacity to cope and deal with whatever is coming at them, because they've got their metaphorical armor on. And that can be that wedding situation or that family gathering situation. You know, I've had a number of clients, the first Christmas is horrific, because, you know, they're going to a family situation and people want to talk about it, and you don't want to talk about it. It's nobody else's business. You don't want it to be the Christmas dinner table conversation. You know, you're trying to have a day off from it. Your kids are maybe away from you, or you're sharing the day. But we can talk about what that feels like and what that looks like, and rehearse responses that shut that down, so that people are going with that armor, that they, you know, we can look at how that potentially could unfold, put
Yeah.
measures in place for an exit of the room, removing yourself for 5 minutes to breathe, go into the bathroom to splash your face with water, to do a breathing exercise, to send me a message, to, you know,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you need to do. We've got that metaphorical armor around you, so that you have the capacity to take on the world that you didn't think you could. And that's really, really important to me, that
Yeah.
people come out the other side of this with a toolkit. That my aim is that they do not need me anymore. My aim is that you have absolutely everything that you need to take yourself forward. And a lot of that is already inside. Everybody has the resources that they need already within. It's just about me asking you the right questions to unlock those. And that's the work.
Yeah. The work again. We
That's the work.
I love everything you've said there. We're so aligned, aren't we, on the things that we talk about, because
Yeah,
you could really take, I would say, about 90% of what you've said and apply it to the work that I do. You really
yeah,
could, because
yeah,
it's the practical stuff, like what to do in the moment,
yeah,
as well as the mindset stuff and the stuff that goes on that isn't surface level and isn't
yeah,
as easily seen by other people.
yeah,
Yeah, I completely agree. Um,
absolutely.
okay, what's something about divorce or breakups that people don't talk about and they really should?
Oh goodness. I think it's the in between stuff. Do you know, the when you're waiting for that finality, you
The
know,
messy middle, the
it's the
messy
messy
middle.
middle. Yeah, that's perfect way of summing it up. It's that messy middle where you're not in it, but you're not out of it. And, you know, you still have to negotiate with each other. You still have to be, what's the word? Considerate of each other to a degree, particularly if there are kids involved. And that's tricky. Do you know, that space is, you're like, a lot of my clients really struggle with you know, when you're doing a monitor in form of some description, they're like married, separated, divorced,
Yeah.
single. Like, well, I'm divorced, but I see myself as single, so which do I take? Do you know?
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Actually, I like that's a really good debate point. Why do you need to say that you are divorced? Why can you not just say you're single?
My clients just tick single. A lot
Yeah.
of them do, and go
Yeah.
back to using this. And you know, again, you know, those kind of bits of which name are you going to use? Are you keeping your married name? Are you going back to your maiden name? Like what like
All those
it's that
decisions.
there's so many decisions, and with those decisions comes paperwork, comes legality, comes frustration. You know, it's not just that I make the decision, it's okay, so what are the ramifications of that decision? And you
Yeah.
know, how will my kids feel if I've got a different surname to them? Is that why I had it in the first place? You know, so
Yeah.
there's all of those kind of things. But yeah, the tick box bit is a pretty strong one, in that sometimes it's just married, divorced, and single, and there's no separated option. So when you're in that messy middle, you're like, well, I'm not married and I'm not divorced, but I'm also not technically single. So which box do I tick? And if I am ticking separated, is that anybody's business?
Yeah.
Not sure. Do you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, technically I haven't got, well, I have now, but on some instances I was going, technically I haven't got my degree absolute, so I'm still married. And for things like insurance, car insurance and things like that, it counts against you if you're not married. It
Really?
affects your premiums. Yeah. So it's definitely worth looking at.
I'd be
When you go
really
to
interested to know if it affects you worse if you're a woman than if you're a man.
well, they can't tell the difference when it's a man, is it? Because it's always Mr. or Mr.
No, no. Wow. Oh my gosh. Right, we could go down loads of rabbit holes. Keep your head in the game, Chrissy. Okay, for the woman who knows she wants more, but she's terrified of what life will look like after if she wants to leave, what would you say to her?
I would say drop me a message, because if you want more, you've already made the decision.
Yeah.
And once you've made that decision, you're not going to be present in the way that you were before. But if you seek support, you can come out of that in a lot more of an amicable way than what you could if you're just going, I'm out, do you know, and switching
Yeah.
off, or it festering for another 5 years and it just teetering off. Because that just builds anger and resentment and frustration that really doesn't need to be experienced by either party.
Mm.
But you absolutely deserve the life that you want,
Yeah.
and absolutely should have it. I wholeheartedly believe that if anyone is in a marriage, whether you're a man or a woman, I don't care. If you're in a marriage and you believe that there's more, that it's not fulfilling anymore, then you're not doing either of you any favors. It
No.
hurts like hell at the time, and it is the most horrific. Never, no matter how amicable a breakup or a divorce is, it is still a horrific process. So nobody comes out unscathed, but there is a way of going through it without causing more misery than is absolutely required.
Yeah.
So just get in contact with me.
And then finally, how did it feel to you? When did you know that you had stepped into like this next level version of you once you were past the divorce? How did you know?
So I left 6 years ago. My divorce was only final this time last year, actually, the end of
Right.
April last year. Actually, it might be the anniversary today of my decree absolute coming through. But I would say that there was 2 points. When I stepped into my own business and decided to leave my full-time employment was the first point where I was really stepping into my authentic self. And the second point actually took me by surprise, and that was when my decree absolute came through. Because I had been away 5 years prior to that. I have set up what my life looks like. My kids and I are pottering along. Everybody's functioning. Everybody's doing their thing, living life as best as we can. And, all very happy, all very healthy. And I didn't really put much value on what that would mean to me. But when it came through, there was a pressure that had lifted around there's no more possibility of a fight for what they deserved or what they wanted or what they thought that I shouldn't have, or any of those things anymore. And that was the sense of finality was not. I had no space for sadness anymore. I only had relief. And that sense of relief, of that pressure being lifted, of that's it. The only thing that I need to navigate now is parental responsibilities. And that I had totally underestimated. I openly admit that I had totally underestimated how that would feel. I thought it was just a piece of paper. I was already living my separated, divorced life, but it had much more power than that. And it's just a piece of paper, but it meant so much more.
Yeah, amazing. So well put, I think. Um, Amanda, this has been incredible and enlightening, and I feel like even though I have no desire to get divorced anytime soon, I feel like I have learnt a lot, and also it's really buoyed me on to continue to fill up my cup because I know then
Definitely.
I can remain the best version of me for Charlie and for my husband Tom. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And you deserve to be the best version of you for you, and
yeah.
I think that, when we go back to the start of this conversation, we put ourselves last over and over and
All the
over
time.
again. And until, I was actually talking to someone the other day who was like, I can't believe you've been through what you've been through, and knew a little bit more of the story. And I was like, I count my blessings every single day. I am so grateful for my divorce journey because it's given me a new career. It's given me a life with my children that I would never have had. And it's given me a sense of self that I would never have encountered, never in a
No.
million years. So I will always be grateful for my
Yeah.
marriage and the end of it, and the resulting years in between, because I have two amazing children and I have a life that I could never have imagined and continue
Oh.
to get excited and curious about. And that is worth all of the heartache and all of the pressure, all of
Oh, that's
it.
lovely. I'm so happy for you. Amanda, where can people find you? Where's the best place for them to seek you out?
Sure. So I've got a website. It's www.amandabarr.net. And I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. My Instagram is AB underscore divorce underscore coach. And LinkedIn, I'm under Amanda Barr.
Yeah.
So
I'll make
yeah,
sure all of the links are in the show notes anyway.
perfect. Perfect. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much for giving up your time to chat to me. I'm sure so many women are going to find this insightful and also, like I say, motivating whether they are in or out of a relationship. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
Everyone,
much for
please
having
make sure that you go and find Amanda on the interweb, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.